And we're live and on the air, and this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. We got a full team, a full crew here tonight. We're going to have some really great discussions, especially since two of our team appear to be drinking beer. That always helps. We got Dale, our friend Dale in Connecticut, in Canada.
Same thing, basically.
Yes. What you drinking, Dale?
That's cappuccino stout.
Stout. Ooh.
That sounds good.
How about you, Justin? What are you drinking, Justin?
I've got a Lagunitas Lil something.
Ooh, nice picture.
That is funny. Mine is also Lagunitas.
Yeah, Lagunitas is really awesome.
It is a beer that I never heard of it. I don't drink much beer, but
yeah. I was actually surprised. I went to our visit to New York. Lagunitas is a regional microbrew, or was regional, very specific to the North Bay Petaluma area, where they're out of. So it was the local. I got turned on to it through beer drinking friends. Plus, when we were doing the show at TWIS, the brewery's real close to there, and I was working down there at the time too. So visited the brewery itself, which also has a really nice brew pub attached to it, many times. And yeah, when we took our trip to TWIS, went to New York, I was amazed. The little bar in the corner next to where we did the show had Lagunitas on tap.
Wow.
So they've definitely caught on, and now I find that they're in Canada as well. They're everywhere.
Yep, imported.
also joining us is Pamela and Chelsey. I know you're studying hard. You're studying hard for law. So hopefully you can stay with us for a while. In any event, I'm going to get to some stories because I really, really love the first two stories. Yes, there you go, Chelsea.
Let's get the show started. Come on, order in the court.
Did I see Canadian Justin there? Are you with us?
I think I'm working now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yay! Awesome. Good to be back.
Great to have you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the screen share. And this is an app, an Apple app. It's just amazing. These Apple apps, all kinds of apps that are now helping people with disabilities. In this particular case, it's a young boy, now 19, and he has Mowat-Wilson syndrome. And it's a development disability. And his family knew by the age of 2 that he had severe language problems. And even by the age of 10, an important milestone in speech development, he would have words. He wasn't able to learn how to speak well, how to use words. When he was 13, they were willing to accept the fact that he had this speech impediment, and then when he was 19, they discovered this iPad app, and it's called Prologue to Go. And this app changed his life. With the dedication of his school team, every day he was able to develop new icons and words that he could add to his vocabulary. His family working with him. He now has a vocabulary of 1,300 words that he can use. And within his app, he's got 35 pages built up, 36 words per page. And the way the app works, and I'll show you a video. It has real-life animated pictures. The pictures output words and phrases associated with symbols, and so this young man, Kevin, can navigate these pages and can share what's on his mind. He wakes up in the morning. He can go to this Prologue 2 to go. He can browse the voice buttons, and the iPad voice greets his family. He can tell them what he wants to do. He stands in the doorway to their bedroom pushing buttons to tell them what he plans to do for today. He tells them what kind of shirt he wants to wear. It's something they never realized how important his appearance was to him. He can communicate with strangers now. The app helps him ask questions to people, like with the local grocery store clerk, about the location of his favorite food. And let me go to a screen share of, well, that's not what I want just yet. I want to get to a YouTube video. It's really neat. Okay. Let me screen share the video. And this isn't him. I don't know if you can hear it. I'm going to jump ahead to the 45. It won't make any difference if you can't hear it because you can see it. And that's this other young child. There's a young boy with autism. I'm going to stop there. That's terrific.
Awesome. That is so cool.
I wonder if Steve Jobs ever sort of had a vision of his product helping kids at that sort of level.
And the thing is, you can see the engagement they have, how excited these kids are.
I think that we often kind of lose sight of when we have children, especially with special needs. We kind of think of them sometimes as not having the same capabilities, thoughts, and behaviors as we do. But as we can see on the expression on that child's face, they're so engaged. You can just see the excitement and the joy. We're giving them a capability that, prior to that iPad, it wouldn't have been as easy for them to have, done what they've done. Technologies like this have been around for a long time. I used to be a teaching assistant in a class, and during the summer times, we'd have a lot of international students. And I'm, teaching an English class, and 80% of the class would be non-English speakers. So it was interesting that as I'm talking, I hear typing and I hear iPads going, and everyone's, translating on the fly what I'm trying to say in order to understand. So it's just amazing how technology has come, especially in this case, giving this young guy the ability to communicate. It's a great thing. This is what technology is supposed to do.
Yeah, that's really great. Let me go on. I'll show you the next one.
Also on that,
go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, just real quick, just imagining the alternative. Imagining this child born 5 years ago, 10. You don't have to go back that far. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, without the access to this mobile piece of technology that allows him to communicate to his parents. I mean, to his family at home, that he wants to wear a certain shirt, right? Like, that was completely lost to him and lost to his parents, and their ability to even communicate didn't exist 5 years ago. And that's just that alternative that everybody with this disability always had to go through. And at some point, when do you stop really even trying to communicate with the outside world? When your efforts are in vain and you don't have a means of letting them know, at what point do you stop interacting with that? When do you stop really trying? So to have this avenue not only gives them the ability, but it gives them that opportunity to express and expand and then see how much they can do with this communication. It's absolutely stunning.
I don't know anything about the disability or the disease that this boy has. I've never heard of it before, so I have to look it up. But what it made me think of in my experience as a nurse is stroke victims. So there's two types of stroke victims. If you have a severe stroke, you either lose the physical, or you can lose language. And so for them trying to communicate, what they want to wear that day, take 45 minutes to figure out what they're trying to say, and they can't just physically pick it up themselves. So I wonder if it'll have that application in nursing homes and that kind of thing in the not too distant future. That would be great.
That's a good point. I bet it will. I bet it sure will.
I know.
Like Chelsey said.
Yeah, and that's it. How many children with different kinds of speech disabilities had far more potential than anyone realized? And I guess as Justin alluded to, now they can demonstrate that potential, and you're getting them when they're young, when they're more malleable. Their brain is more malleable. So it's really tremendous. Going on to the next equally very cool story, and this deals with prosthetic hand, and it's just an amazing piece of technology. And what it does is it allows the child to almost accessorize, pick from a selection of different hands that they can attach. And there's a video there as well. I'll just read from I'll screen share and read from the story, and then I'll show you another video that also really demonstrates how well this works. And this was designed by Carlos Otero Torres, and it's a modular system that lets kids program their own prosthetics. And it's only the start of a toy-based body parts. Toy-based body parts. Children can soon use their favorite toy grafted onto the end of their arm. And this is IKEA, is the work of a Chicago-based Colombian designer, Carlos Arturo Torres. Designed with Lego's Future Lab, the Danish toy company's experimental research department, and CIRCI, a Colombian foundation for physical rehabilitation. The prosthetic arm incorporates myoelectric sensors that register the activity of the muscle in the stump and send a signal to control movement in the attachment. A process unit in the body of the prosthetic contains an engine compatible with Lego Mindstorm, the company's robotic line, which lets the wearer build an extensive range of customized, programmable limbs. There had to be the right balance between a playful experience and something functional, said Torres. Something that could allow kids to explore their creativity, something they could be proud of, something a functional element is everything they need, but at other times it might be a spaceship, a dollhouse, a telescope. And for Torres, Lego is only the beginning of a future of toy-based body parts. Imagine Marvel developing superhero body parts. And now, come on, you screenshot thing, you. Let me show you the video. And this is a Vine video. I've got to hold it. Come on, God, stop. Stop. All right. Here we go. The screen share again. Okay. That is freaking amazing. Okay, guys, you can talk then. Unless you're so awed by what you saw, as I was.
So, also, first thing, next video you put up, do a screen lock on it so we can talk while we're watching it. So part of why this is extra brilliant is that it's a prosthetic that probably isn't as functional really as getting a professionally, high top technology in prosthetics sort of a thing that you can have. But the price is, or if you don't have insurance, the price might be, within the $1,000 range of possibilities to actually be affordable. But more importantly, that whole customizable thing, the idea that this isn't this robot arm that you're going to be a cyborg and using and having to adjust to. This can be used as a hand if you want to, or you can just make it into any number of toys to manipulate as you choose. That angle to it makes this a playful introduction to prosthetics, which is insanely insightful by the gentleman who came up with it. I mean, that's really understanding the child mind and the child's desire to interact in a playful way with the surroundings. And Legos had this robotics wing to it, this educational robotics wing that it's been somewhat promoting, and then there's robotics classrooms across the country that are using this stuff to play with to some degree. But this is actually by far the highest and best use I've seen it implemented in.
Yeah, we had Lego when I was in primary school. So when I was about 10 or 11, which is 25 years ago, we had Lego robotic stuff. It was really slow, but yeah. So it's been around for a while.
Well, you had Lego remote-controlled sort of gear and motor stuff. I mean, they've gone well beyond that. They have.
I understand that it's moved beyond that in 25 years. But you had like the black and white screen, and you'd type the instructions, and then you'd like wait 15 minutes, and it would do something. But at the time,
I guess I was in school a few decades before you.
No,
because
you're only 8 years older
our
than
black
me.
and white screen was a chalkboard.
Yeah, no, we had that as well. This was in a specialized classroom, and because it was so expensive, only the really good students actually even got to access it. So it was a motivation to do your homework.
Just Pamela and no one else.
No, it wasn't just me. But I got to access it, and it was pretty cool. But you could have a nap in between movements. But I'm just saying, so that was when you're saying it's been around for a while, it has been, the basics have been around for quite a while. I'm glad to see it's improved in 25 years.
With this particular prosthetic, because of that, you can accessorize it. I can visualize that child going to his classroom and his classmates saying, they want one. I want a laser. I want a laser hand.
Dude, can I borrow your arm?
I want to.
Yes, Dale?
Of this, so I'm gonna project it into the future because, I think what's going to happen in a nutshell, we're going to go from disability to superhumanity because these children, you're empowering them to make their lives better. And a percentage of these children are going to want to take this further and perfect this and perfect it to a point where they outdo our typical average humanity. And there will be a point, I think, where economically, and I know we've already hit it in certain different areas where we have runners with artificial limbs that can run faster than a lot of people with their normal limbs. We're going to hit situations where it's going to be awesome, where you can't compete in the Olympics because you're using a form of electronics or some hybrid system that's on your body. There's going to be all sorts of really new, and then there's going to be, you know, going 30, 40, 50, 60 years down the line, you're going to have people actually contemplating, you know what, maybe I don't actually want this human hand anymore. Maybe I'm going to make it better. And a hybrid, robotic, genetically engineered part that I can get. And I wonder if that's where, if this isn't the infantile stage of where something in the future might grow into.
Hopefully the future desire to amputate your own hand doesn't come about. But if your hand can be within an artificial appendage and be operating it, I could see that. It's a pretty tough stretch to be like, this can't be upgraded. I'll never need that part that's a little terrifying. I hope that day doesn't come.
I'd like a hand where your nails stop growing, so I can just go and get my nails done, and then that's it.
But then you break a nail, and you're like, I'm totally screwed.
I don't break. No, I get the good quality. I don't break a nail. The only way they come off is that they grow out. And then I have to go and get them infilled, and then they grow out. And then I have to get them infilled, and then they grow out. And so if I could just get my nails done, and then that'd be it.
You know, that's the genius part.
So Pamela is looking for not the electronic version for her nails, but what she's really searching for is the CRISPR. Her genetics will be slightly altered, but are impervious to any sort of breaks and stuff. Is that right?
You know, there's a model by the name of Amy Mullins, and she has prosthetic legs. She's given TED Talks. And the thing is, she has a closet of different prosthetic legs. She can actually control her height. She can be shorter one day if she wants to, or she can be taller one day if she wants to. And I can visualize, you know, you have the artificial hand, the artificial leg. You get up in the morning and you decide, what kind of hand do I want today? Do I want the tiger hand because I'm going to Or do you want the nice little dainty model hand? How tall do I want to be? Do I want to be 5'10" or 6 feet tall or 6 feet 5?
Now think about the scientifically inspired child that has maybe a missing arm or missing legs, and they're playing around with these Lego sets. Think of where they're going to take this. I think in a generation we're going to see superhumanity, where the technology will surpass what normal humanity could provide. I think these people will be inspired to make something that's in some ways greater than what we have naturally.
So have you all seen the
movie?
movie?
I think that's exciting too.
Have you all seen the movie Surrogate with Bruce Willis?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, that's where no one pretty much leaves the house anymore. You stay at home, and you have an artificial body of your choosing. You make it look however you want it to be. Whether it looks like you or not is up to you. And it goes out and it lives your life for you, and you live it through the eyes. So if you're like a short white chick, you could be a tall black dude if you want to be out in what's now the real world, because it's a futuristic sci-fi thing. So you just you just stay home, and you just remote control your body and send it off to do your life.
So you can see through that body? Is that how it works? So you can see and live through that body?
Face, here, yep, everything.
Sounds
so
like an avatar.
You are the body, basically. Oh.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, it's
Justin,
a good movie.
Canadian Justin, you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say going to Pamela's point, it sounds like a play on the Avatar series. You kind of do something remotely, or we were kind of talking about a lot of the kind of Lego stuff that was kind of shown in that video was more giving people with disabilities an ability that they wouldn't otherwise have. And then the discussion kind of went into, well, if I have a pair of functioning hands, maybe I might want to give myself some other type of hand or some other type of ability using that technology. Well, in a very rudimentary way, that's what we've been doing with tools. So if we want the ability to, say, record our thoughts in a manner, we would pick up a pen. So a pen is, the technological advancement of not having to do oral storytelling anymore. So this is just an extension of that on a high-tech level, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it'll continue to evolve and get better. Any scientific endeavor or engineering endeavor, once we kind of get really good at something, it gets behind us, we take that, move forward, try to conquer new avenues, and it's just going to keep getting better. So I think there will be a critical point where, yeah, we have to question how much do we want to alter ourselves, both in genetic, environmental, electronically. How do we want to bind ourselves all together? Maybe we're 50 years away, but I think it's coming.
What about a scenario where you have a fetus, and you can monitor that fetus, and you can tell that's one of its limbs is deformed? Now you have the option, you will eventually, I think in the future, have the option of genetically manipulating the genes on that particular fetus, particularly if it's young, so that a normal hand will develop. Or you could wait, you're prepared, so that when the child is born at that very, very age, maybe you can do the operation then and fit it with a prosthetic when it's very, very, just a baby. And it learns to grow up using that arm as if it was one of its own.
All sorts of philosophical questions for the future. If you have a child that's, say, 10 years old and with Down syndrome, and with Down syndrome comes a whole host of complications that can occur, cancers and different things. Now, in order to wipe that out, the human body is complex. In order to fix that, maybe that affects their personality. What are the philosophical implications of the future? Because by maybe eradicating the potential cancers and things that can happen to a child with Down syndrome, I think the fix is going to be far more complex, where it's going to affect their personality. It's going to affect everything, because you're dealing with base chromosomes that are out of order. So as we begin to get to the technology when we can alter these things, what does that mean philosophically? Because you're basically going to change that child into something different, I would assume.
Well, I don't have any children with Down syndrome, so I really can't speak from even the gut on this, let alone from any sort of perspective. But I imagine, if I'm going out on the suspending all actual knowledge of having gone through this, my suspicion would be that my decision would be to go ahead. To give my child especially if you're talking at 10 years old, let's try a shift of perspective. And I think that could be a positive for somebody who doesn't have a syndrome, condition, DMSO, anything, to have a significant shift in perspective, to see the world in a completely different way, perhaps, than they were, experience in a different way, can be really positive and can gain much ground. That was sort of my disclaimer in the last TWIS. We all sort of flow like a river at some point in our life, where everything is going with the flow, and we're cutting through mountains and winding through valleys, and we're pushing forward. And at some point, all of us sort of get to content with everything that's going on. We turn into a lake, and that's pretty cool, but you can stagnate there. And so even in any scenario, a sort of allowing yourself to evaporate to a different state and go on and become that river again is a good thing to do, and people should do it more often in their lives, I think, than they're willing to, because there's that sort of fear of being carried by the wind, and I guess that's how I'm saying this, is that there is an unknown. You don't know for sure what the end result of that change would be. But I don't think you should fear changes in perspective, and if it's changing mental acuity, especially, because my biggest fear is in life has always been the loss of cognitive ability. Doing it, I could lose a limb. Who cares? It's just a limb. You know, my economic status, my social status, my whatever status, none of this shit matters. Sorry, but if all of a sudden I had like the stroke, where I not only couldn't communicate, but had an actual loss of cognitive ability that I was aware of, which I think I would, because you can contrast it, right? You can contrast. It was like I used to be able to read and do math, and now I can't. And now this is something that's foreign and hard for me. Like, this would be really, that's my greatest fear. Shark could take my leg. I got a great story to tell. But all of a sudden I don't have the ability to come up with a witty reply to something, and I'm like, I no longer want to be on the planet. So I think if there's the opportunity to give somebody mental acuity, that will make them better able to, interact with the world around them, I think, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if it's reasonable at some point that we can do that and increase mental acuity, I wonder where that stops, because your dog, you want your dog to now behave more like a human 3 or 4-year-old, and they begin to reason more like a human being. I know that's going way out there, but I think the science, if we were able to do this at a human level, I'm just imagining all these very difficult philosophical things that may be hitting us in the future. And
so let me reverse it then. Let me reverse it and say you had to decide at some point when your toddler was cute and adorable and had a simple, happy life, and music came on and they danced, and knocking over blocks was pure joy. And you always had that decision to make, whether or not to allow them to progress developmentally and to one day become an angst-filled teenager who can't be happy watching television or playing video games or going out to the park or being with their friends or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if you actually had to make this choice of progressing beyond that toddler bliss, there would be a lot of people who would say, no, it's not worth it. The rest of the world out there isn't worth maintaining this bliss for the next 50 years, right? But we do progress. And so I think once the ability to progress, even, your dog, your toddler child dog that's just happy with getting fed or going for a walk, once the option is there to make them, actually, to be honest, I've always wanted to do sculpture, and I've signed myself up for an institute halfway across the country, so I'm leaving. It's a 4-year program, it's almost like, because we've never had the option to allow intelligence to progress, it seems like a weird choice. But in the scenario where we never had a choice, it seems really awful if we had in any way retarded the ability of somebody to progress through intelligence. So that's, I think, in a retrospect sort of way, the conversation will look different than it does on this side of having that as a potential possibility.
Pamela, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, when we were talking about, Dale was saying, make your dog into like a 3-year-old, whatever, human. It made me think of another sci-fi film, The Fly. Have you all seen The Fly?
Oh, of course. I think I was.
Okay, so to start with, The Fly's like, this is cool, I'm like a human body, blah, 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 blah. And at the end, The Fly's like grabbing the gun to its head and asking her to kill it, because it would rather be a fly than a human. Being a human is way worse than being a fly. So that made me think of that. I think the dogs would say, "You bastards, leave me alone. I don't want to be a human 3-year-old. I want to be a dog." I don't think
Maybe.
anyone's messing with that. And if people want 3-year-olds, have a baby. Leave your dog alone. It's a dog.
I know, but people, statistically, people do all sorts of things. And so there's going to be the fringe sort of person on the outside that's going to give killer bees, they're going to mess with their genetics, and they're going to give them more intelligence. And the killer bees, the swarm mentality will turn into almost like a nubile, human instinctual swarm that could attack us. There's all sorts of really interesting, awesome things that could happen in the future.
Actually, I think elevated intelligence would be awful for the swarm. I think the hive mentality is a retardation of intelligent self, and the intelligent self is going to be like, yeah, you guys can all go swarm. I got one sting and done, so I'm moving to Canada, just so you know. I'm going to move to Canada to avoid this whole swarm stinging activity, because I know how that ends, and it ends badly. And I'd rather go and have a pot farm in Canada than be involved in any sort of hive mind activity.
Yeah, perfect. You know, this could go in so many weird directions, but yeah, you know what? You start to in place, you figure out how to insert a touch of humanity into any other species, and we're going to get all these really weird, warped things happening, and you can't really project what that's going to be. But you know what? One thing is, if it can be done, someone's going to do it. You can count on that.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, there's going to be a vegetarian lion who's going to be like, you know, when I was a lion, I hunted the zebra, I ate the zebra, but now I realize I don't really have to. And honestly, I always did feel a little bad about it. You know, like this is the thing. It's like that's the thing. That's the apple of intelligence, is that it does. You find other paths from the natural world. You're not bound by instinct anymore. You're not simply bound by your instinctual behavior, that animal behavior, that you can draw lines and say, it's not for me. I'm going to find a different path to it.
So it's the development of the neocortex, the away from the fight or flight system and into the neocortex, and developing that logical, linear thought process.
Yeah.
They will be able to do that.
And that's what intelligence is. Intelligence is just the biggest first hurdle of intelligence that you can say something's intelligent is that it overcomes that sort of animal brain telling you, eat this, sleep now, mate simply to reproduce. You know, it allows you to hack nature to an extent and say, I like a sex drive, but I just learned how to masturbate, so I don't actually have to fight for a mate now, right? Like I don't, like, yeah, I'm hungry now, but I'll have a cup of coffee and I'll work for a couple more hours, and then I'll go to, you know, I'll have a early dinner. Like, it allows you to trump nature, and that's the first big advantage that intelligence gave, was that ability to ignore the brain, ignore the sort of automated brain responses and rewards and punishments that the brain gives to control animals.
And just stepping right in, before we go off into a masturbation discussion, we can talk about the untapped potential of the human brain. We are not anywhere near close to tapping the potential of the human brain and being able to, with a great degree of precision, predict the capabilities of, let's say, child. And I'm thinking of talking about, I have a cousin who was born with Down syndrome. Now, my aunt had 5 children, and Peter developed possibly to about the age, mentally, about to the age of maybe 9 or so. And, Peter was always with him, his mother and his father, and the others went off and did their thing. When they got older, my aunt said Peter was her best son. The other sons, they just went off. They didn't want to know anything about dad and mom anymore. Peter was their best child. Now, think of that, when Peter was born, and they're looking at him, and, maybe they're thinking, man, we're going to be stuck with this kid, but you can't predict how that particular child will develop emotionally as well. You can't you can't really accurately predict.
Yeah, I have a Down syndrome cousin. He was the first grandchild out of anyone, and he has 3 younger siblings. And yeah, he's the favorite. He was the best one. He's of any of us. Yeah, and he was probably about the same. I think he probably developed about the same. He's able to have like a paper route, with a big tricycle and a trailer and that kind of thing.
So this also, and I'm retrospecting earlier comments now, and saying how, because it's all hypothetical, because I don't have a Down syndrome child. Of course, it seems plausible that this would be a great, give an alternative perspective, blah, 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 blah. But if I was to take that perspective towards one of my brilliant, well-adjusted, mentally acute children now and say I could make them even more mentally acute and increase their brain power, I wouldn't do it. No way, no, I wouldn't change them at all. So I think part of my perspective is definitely rooted in the fact that I have no relation to this. Because in what I do have a connection to, there is no way, shape, or form I would attempt to adjust their perspective dramatically in any way, shape, or form.
The only thing that I would have done any differently had I had a Down syndrome child was have another child immediately. Because one day her dad and I will be dead, and she'll only be middle-aged, and she'll still need care. So if you have another sibling right away, hopefully not Down syndrome the second time, which would be very unlikely, then at least that sibling will be around.
I think there's going to be difficult questions in the future. I really think, and I think Down syndrome is a prime target where they have to mess around with the chromosomes enough that in order to eliminate possibilities of cancers where they have higher probabilities of these diseases, to fix those, it's going to affect mental acuity in doing so. And I think we're going to have to face that 15 years out from now, where a lot of these techniques will be refined enough where we'll be at the point where we'll have to start to consider, in order to save my child, do I want to change their personality? And I believe, and that's a great big leap, but I think it's coming up. I think it's going to happen, and that's a tough one, because you love your children just the way they are, and those will be agonizing. I think we have agonizing decisions in the future in certain cases.
But if the alternative is that they die, well then yeah, you change their personality, or you don't have a kid at all.
Yeah, but I think it's more. I think he's talking more of a Brave New World, where you're going to have to decide whether or not your next generation is going to be the clone Alpha, Beta, Kappa, or if you're going to run into the wild and have natural childbirths, and no soma, and sort of non-genetically enhanced children, natural humans trying to compete against unnatural humans.
No, I'm saying you have a 14-year-old Down syndrome child that has progressed, as best as possible, and they're having a wonderful life, and it's productive to their capacity that they can be productive. But along with that comes some significant risks of disease. And I think that there will be dilemmas, and the Down syndrome is just one example of many. I think there will be very, very heavy philosophical dilemmas that we're going to have to confront ethically in the future of how we treat people, because we're going to get to the point where it impacts them as who they are as a human being. And you know, I know several children that have Down syndrome, and they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people that, you know, just hugs and kisses all the time, and it's awesome. And do you want to mess with that to in any way to try to make them improve their sustainability to not get some of these awful diseases? I don't know. It's a real tough one, but I think it's coming.
Kennedy and Justin, I don't know, you had a chance. Do you have any thoughts on this? All right. Okay. I heard something. I heard something. Okay, I gotta.
That was probably me chewing.
We got a bunch of stories in the lineup, but this is something I saw today, and it alludes to something Justin was talking about, and that is the animals are revolting. They're coming after us. There is a new show called Zoo where that scenario plays out, where suddenly the animals come after the humans. And you've got the Alfred Hitchcock movie, Birds, where seagulls and things start attacking people. And you know what? That's happening. That's happening in Cornwall, England. And I'm going to screen share again.
We have family there. Oh dear.
Oh dear. Oh dear is right. And this is in The Guardian. And it says, killer seagulls top the pecking order for media frenzy. And there's one of them gulls. Then one of their gulls coming in. And just this one sentence. The latest attacks in Cornwall, southwest England, which appears to be a hotspot for attacks this summer, have left a 66-year-old woman needing hospital treatment and a 4-year-old boy traumatized after his finger was severed.
Oh!
Holy mackerel! She was pounced on as she walked. She was pounced on by this seagull as she was walking her dog. All of a sudden, I felt a whoosh. I saw a seagull. He came in again, cut the top of my head. I was oozing blood, apart from the fact I was bleeding. I mean, this is serious stuff. A 4-year-old boy was attacked as he was munching a sausage roll. Okay, now maybe the gull thought this finger was a sausage roll. That's possible. But these are not isolated attacks. I mean, they're really bombarding people all over the place. So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Man meets nature. A severed finger from a seagull? I don't quite buy it. I somehow don't believe it. They don't have teeth. Their jaws aren't that strong. This is a fake story. It has to be.
Oh no, it's not fake. Happening to too many, unless the entire city of Cornwall. Come on.
Yeah, probably. I could see that. Actually, that's very likely. Your defense is actually it makes my case. Cornwall. I mean, you can't trust Cornwallians. There's just no way.
Yeah, is that even a real city? Come on.
Yeah. They're just, well, actually, they're an antisocial city. They're trying to deter tourists with the threat of limb-savaging seagulls. I mean, seagull has no teeth and doesn't have a jaw that's powerful enough to clamp down and cut through human bone and tendon. This is just not possible.
I've been to Cornwall. They don't have to deter tourists. I have no desire to go back. I don't. I'm not talking. I don't care about the seagulls.
Okay, we can touch on the next story. It's something that Justin talked about last night in TWIS, which was, and also Pamela. Pamela posted this story in Facebook, and it had to do with humans crossing the barrier land bridge from Serbia into the Americas thousands of years ago, according to genetic analysis. Now I'm going to read very briefly from this story, and I also want to talk. There's a great documentary that touches on this called First People, and I highly recommend it. But touching briefly on this first story, it says the simplest hypothesis would be that a single population penetrated the ice sheets and gave rise to most of the Americas. And this is David Reich of Harvard Medical School. And his team found evidence for a single funding migration in the genomes of modern members of 52 North American groups. But another guy came along, and this is Skolgren. And his discovery, published July 21st in Nature, was that members of two Amazonian groups are more closely related to Papua New Guineans and Aboriginal Australians than they are to Native Americans. The team confirmed the finding with several statistical methods used to untangle genetic ancestry, as well as additional genomes from Amazonians and Papuans. We have spent a lot of time being skeptical and incredulous about this finding and trying to make it go away, but it just gets stronger. There are explanations that distant ancestors of Australian Asians also crossed the Bering land bridge, only to be replaced by the first Americans in most of North and South America. Let's see. Other genetic evidence suggests that modern-day Australian Asians descended from humans who once lived more widely across Asia. I'm going to stop with that story and just very briefly talk about this First People. It's a series of 5 episodes, and it includes that story. It also includes, and I'm just going to read the last paragraph from a review of this First People story. And it talks about cave systems along the Rhine and Danube rivers form the backdrop for the investigation of the tools, art, and trading network among the first humans in Europe. Particularly interesting are the sites in which the Neanderthals and several modern humans both camped at different times, as well as with evidence that Neanderthals were attempting to replicate human modern technology. It is clear Neanderthals are as smart and capable as modern humans, but it's still not clear exactly why they died out, leaving only traces of their DNA. The suggestion is, one hypothesis is that the Neanderthals and the humans, when they interbred, gradually the hybrid became more human, less Neanderthal, and the Neanderthal populations, which were already on the decline, may have become smaller, more isolated, and died out. Now, both of these stories point to my main point, which is human migration is a messy story. It's not a nice simple. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, first of all, this story is almost in contradiction to the story that I covered recently, at least in its presentation. So, you know, it's showing that there's an Australian-Amazonian connection of, when you drill down into the study, it's about 2%. Now, the Neanderthal content of my DNA is 4%. So what you're talking about is, yeah, we understand that the same group that ended up, I mean, and it also says that the migration took place 15,000 years ago, which is not even as old as some of the evidence of Native Americans having settled in the North America, right? So problematic. The study that I covered showed it was actually 23,000 years ago. And there would be a lineage, possibly, in some populations. So what's sort of interesting, it's the mother's DNA and the father's DNA. And if you have a direct link of fathers all the way down or mothers all the way down, you can trace these things back. And so, yeah, they may have a mother or a father who traces all the way back to something that was connected to the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. It does not mean that there was cross-Pacific Ocean migration taking place. It does not in any way, shape, or form indicate that. And this study seems to have some sort of loopholes. It was based on a study, I guess, in 2012. And the latest genetic survey, which was completed in 2015, has very contradictory information in it. So, and also one of the things they say is we would need somebody with a Y chromosome who we could check, but at this point we haven't found one. This is also before they even realized Kennewick Man. And there have been these morphology claims based on Amazonian people that they have morphology similar to Aborigines or Peloponnesians and this sort of thing. The same sort of thing took place with Kennewick Man. He had morphology. The sort of structure of his skull seemed much more Caucasian than a typical Native American. But of course, there is no typical Native American. Native Americans had quite a great breadth of features. So once we got the DNA from Kennewick Man, we found he was genetically, if not morphologically, a typical Native nation, Native American, first visitor, So I kind of don't put a lot, if any, even weight into their finding 2% in common DNA with Aboriginal peoples, seeing as how I myself have 4% with Neanderthal, who was on the planet much less recently, and I'm quite sure came nowhere near the Americas, even though I happen to be here now.
Yes, my article, and perhaps I didn't read it properly, had two different studies coming to two different conclusions, fighting over it. The First People documentary had concluded that there was a connection between the Australian Asians and the Amazonians, but after that documentary came out,
that documentary was published in what year? I mean, came out what year?
2012.
Was it even 2012? Because there were earlier versions of it. There's a BBC documentary maker who did a whole thing on this, but he's also one of those sort of like ancient alien Bigfoot. He does a whole series and slew of sort of catchy documentary style films that are loosely based on bullshit. And they made this claim very emphatically based on morphology alone, which was fascinating when I was watching, because I'm like, wait, we have DNA. We have DNA exists in this day and age that you're doing this documentary, and yet there is zero DNA evidence being brought forward, which I thought was weird. That was odd.
Yeah, DNA has been the key to being able to fill in this map more completely, because there's all kinds of hypotheses. In fact, probably everything said previously to DNA was just a guess. It was just a hypothesis. It was just a theory. Different people
Educated guesses, but also, you know, when there's the educated guess based on morphology, when you're saying this is similar to this and this looks like this, then there's the educated yet biased belief, which is, I think this is true, and I found these key points of evidence that I'm going to circle, ignoring everything else, that tells me that it could be true. It's possible, right? And yeah, DNA has obliterated a ton of those types of claims.
So twice amongst all of this, I heard the term Australian Asian.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell's that?
Well, Australians came from Asia. Well, I mean, they came from Africa. True.
Like there's Australian Asians, you know, as in my friend, like my sister-in-law is from South Korea, so she's an Australian Asian. But yeah, that's not what you're talking about.
Okay.
If we can go back to the
I'm not talking about like a white guy from South Africa moving to the United States and being called African American.
No, Australian Asian.
I'm talking about your nation origin as ethnic identity. I'm talking about the Aboriginal peoples who populated Australia originally, having left Africa and come through Asia down into Australia because they could walk it at one point.
I've just never heard that term before.
Yeah, there was an entire episode in First People devoted to Australia, and if again, this is you know, a year ago. That documentary came out maybe a year ago, and what they were looking at, you know, they found that, I guess they found some kind of a genetic link when they looked at the genome between Australian Aborigines and these islanders, South Asian Sea Islanders. And the Sea Islanders, you know, they did a lot of island hopping. And their guess was, the scenario they built was that when the sea level dropped, eventually the South Sea Islanders could have hopped across in rafts and things and eventually made their way onto Australia and become the first Australians.
Yeah.
And the British kidnapped 60,000 South Sea Islanders 150 years ago and brought them here as slaves. So that's why we have South Sea Islanders.
That's going to complicate things.
And they were enslaved to plant the sugarcane here in Queensland, and Aboriginal people were rounded up and enslaved with them. And then they rounded them up when they were done with them a decade later, and, well, rounded up as many as they could, Aborigines and South Sea Islanders, they didn't care, and then they sent them back, some of them back to South Sea. So some of them are still here. Some of them were murdered when some of them got sick on a ship and they thought it was easier just to sink the ship, and then the rest went back. So there are actually some Australian Aborigines that were sent back with the enslaved South Sea Islanders 140 years ago, because it was 10 years, over in like Vanuatu and that, and then we have some here. So that got complicated. But that was the British. That wasn't them. If you actually go to Vanuatu, you wouldn't leave.
Hannah, what you're talking about was another thing that was brought out in that First People series. It made me think of how, when I talked about how messy migrations are. So you could have these South Sea Islanders, maybe, and they became the first Australians, maybe like the first wave. But now, you know, maybe 200, maybe 1,000, 5,000 years later, you could have another wave come in, perhaps as slaves, and they may mix. And now you've got all kinds of mutations in individuals, and it becomes very, very difficult to determine, is it from the first wave? Is it from the second wave? It's really messy.
One of my good friends has a South Sea Islander, I think her dad, and then her mum's Aboriginal, and she has 4 children, and one of them's white. Like, he's just like a genetic throwback. You can't tell looking at him that he's South Sea and Aboriginal, whereas the other 3 you can tell looking at them. So, yeah. We're all just mixed. I don't know why we have to distinguish male, female, trans, Australian, whatever. Let's just be people.
It's because you guys talk differently.
So do you. Say built.
That's funny.
Thankfully, I'm from California, so I know that I talk correctly because ours is the language of media, and therefore, yeah. If you're British, the proper way to speak is, I think it's called Kent English.
When I do a fake British accent, I've been told by my husband that I sound like I'm from Surrey, which is not necessarily a compliment, I found out.
Most people do a bad Cockney accent when they're trying to be British.
Yeah.
Hello, governor, and all that kind of stuff. It's really annoying. But the BBC is, I think, Kent English, and I think that's the official English, is what the media does. And therefore, being Californian, the California English is the actual English for the world, because all the movies are in California.
Right. Well, I'm interested, to hear what my daughter's accent will be like, because she's going to be raised all over the world, and she's got a British dad and an Australian mum. So we will wait and see what she sounds like.
I remember many years ago there was the spelling champion of the United States, and it was a girl. It seems to be always a girl, and she had a real Southern accent. You could picture a real Southern belle. Actually, she was in Vietnam, but she had been raised in Tennessee. So if you listen to her, you see there's some Southern belle, when in fact she was Vietnamese in origin.
Well, we had lots of Canadians, like when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and a little bit in the 70s. They had thick American accents because it was the introduction of cable TV that changed everything.
Right? Yeah.
Although we all talked like Andy Griffith for quite a while. There was a period in the 70s. It was an awful, awful period, but there was that period.
Dale, you had a story you wanted to talk about earlier about, it's interesting, the algorithm, the Google algorithm of truth. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, I do.
You find the story.
I'm just trying to find the link.
I'll put the link in the show notes. In the chat area.
I was going to say, when I was in my tweens and teens, I watched all the Degrassi series. Oh. So we were like running around talking Canadian.
That's awesome.
I love Degrassi.
I know. I watched it too. It was all good.
And then I watched something recently where, because they probably can't get jobs before actors, so they're doing a new series, and they're the parents of the new Degrassi.
I know. I know.
I know from Degrassi.
Oh boy, that's hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah. Did you know it was on in Australia?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, and you can't do that on television. That was on here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
I don't know, slime. Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's awesome. No, I had no idea that, that it gets out there like that. But yeah, I guess sales is sales, right? If they can sell it abroad, they certainly attempt to do that.
It was on our government broadcasting, like not the commercial. It was on the government one when I was a kid. I don't know if it's on now. But yeah, okay. No. Good.
That's awesome.
American TV, and we were watching Canadian TV.
Yeah, no, when I was young, we had, when cable first came out in the late 70s, early 80s, it was all American channels, and it kind of changed the society. I'm not saying good, bad, or otherwise, but it changed things because you become accustomed to new ideas. And so it was interesting going through that. And now on the internet, everything's kind of getting mixed. But Yeah, so a lot of those people that worked on Degrassi and stuff, I still occasionally see them and stuff because they're within our network. So it's a small world. And yeah, they are going to become the parents now.
Tell them. It was so funny when sorry to get off topic. It was so funny when we were trying to choose because we didn't name Chelsea for a few weeks, and we were running through names, and one of the suggestions from her dad was Caitlin. He said, "What do you think of Caitlin?" I'm like, "Oh my god, my favorite character from Degrassi."
That's terrific.
She gave it to Caitlin, and I said, "Yeah, she was a political activist."
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I totally watched
no, we
Degrassi.
Yeah, love. But one of our friends already has a Caitlin, and we hang around with them, so we thought, no, we won't go with Caitlin. But yeah, nearly.
It's such a small planet.
It's all right. You're in Chelsea.
So yeah, I'm just looking for this this post on Salon here. Oh, so it's the Google one.
You can talk about the eye drop cataract thing if you want, whichever story you prefer.
The anti-science.
Okay.
This one is a short one. I don't think we'll probably talk about it too much, but I thought it was important. Just the anti-science advocates are freaking out about Google truth rankings, and it's a very slippery and dangerous slope because there's no arguing with a machine. So Google could launch an effort to keep trolls and bad information at bay with a program that would rank websites according to veracity and sort results according to those rankings. Currently, the search engine ranks pages accordingly to popularity, which means that pages containing unsubstantiated celebrity gossip or conspiracy theories, for example, show up very high. New scientist Hal Hodson reports on the proposed knowledge-based trust score. The software works by tapping into the knowledge vault, the vast store of facts that Google has pulled off the internet. Facts the web unanimously agrees on are considered a reasonable proxy for the truth. Web pages that contain contradictory information are bumped down the rankings. Google has recently implemented a kind of knowledge-based truth score light with its medical search results. Now doctors and real medical experts vet search results about health conditions, meaning anti-vax propaganda will not appear in the top results for a measles search, for instance. Even though the former program is just in the research stage, some anti-science advocates are upset about the potential development, likely because their websites will become buried under content that is, well, true. I worry about this issue greatly, said Anthony Watts, founder of climate-denying website. What's up with that? In an interview with FoxNews.com, my site gets a significant portion of its daily traffic from Google. It is a very slippery and dangerous slope because there's no arguing with a machine. Rich Noyes, a research director at the Conservative Media Research Center, told Fox News that media watchdogs that would likely be influencing these truth rankings are more sympathetic to liberal ideas. They're very good at debunking myths if they upset liberals, he said. But if it's a liberal or left-wing falsehood, the fact checkers don't seem as excited about debunking it. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that, or is that a nonsense story?
You want to say something, Justin?
So there is that whiff of this is not double plus thought, therefore it shall not appear in the conversation between humans. That is immediately revolting. There's a 1984 aspect to it, which I cannot in any way, shape, or form condone. I'm saying way, shape, or form much too often tonight. But on the other hand, yeah, like I'm sorry, your your conspiracy theory, the global warming denying website doesn't pass the smell test. Like you can say anything you want in free society, but if it's absolute BS and if you're making up in your facts, yeah, you should get called on it. So I'm of two minds, and both of them are now getting into a wrestling match over whether this is appropriate or not. And I totally get that. I totally get the point that, yeah, if your watchdogs have a political bias, they're going to be really aggressive at calling out the weaknesses of the other politically oriented agenda's viewpoint. And the ones that you're maybe sympathetic or could care less about, you won't watchdog as hard. I absolutely believe that's true, right? But you know, this is also we're taking the conversation immediately to the political sphere, and we have 24-hour news network on the air, which is called Fox News, that calls itself a news network, claims to be a news network, but covers every single type of possible story that comes across its plate as a political story. I mean, where's the sports reporter from Fox News? I don't know that there is one. Where's the art critics or the movie critics? I don't know that they have them. Where's the science segment on this 24-hour news channel? I don't believe it exists. Every story that they cover is a political-oriented study. Everything from a crime story to a hurricane to a anything story has a political slant to it, and it is basically a political thing. So if the algorithm is saying your politics don't weigh anything in terms of facts, then yeah, it can be kind of refreshing to have that removed from attempted journalistic endeavors. I'm talking about people's personal websites, though.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So in one sort of sense, in Canada, certain diseases we've lost herd immunity, and we've lost herd immunity because of I chalk it up to the internet, the anti-vax community. So in one sense, I see as debunking that and it not showing up in the search ratings as a powerful tool to keep the human species going and flourishing. But in the same respect, it's very dangerous because of the control that one company has over the dissemination of information. But on balance between those two things, if I had to choose, I'm going to choose the immediate threat, because that's the one in the forefront. And the immediate threat right now is the anti-vax community. That could affect us in a really, it's in a fringe way still, but it's starting to make me feel uncomfortable. But maybe the answer in the future is more diversity in you know, other than just Google, who has a monopoly right now. You know, maybe that has to be maybe that has to change.
So there's some legal precedent. There's some legal precedent to what they're doing, which is the idea of falsely screaming fire in a crowded movie theater. It's actually illegal. This is a type of speech that is not covered by the First Amendment in the United States. You know, when you're inciting a riot for the sake of creating a riot, or panic for the sake of creating panic, that free speech is not protected. And I can sort of see that you know, like an anti-vax sort of thing qualifying as yelling fire in a crowded movie theater where there is no fire. On the other hand, I don't see the other aspect, the sort of the ignored aspect of it is sort of like, how come then it doesn't demote any type of advertisement for a diet soda, right? Like this diet soda as a way to reduce calorie intake is on par with saying not taking vaccines will help you be healthy, right? Right? And so there is that, like, where do you stop, and why isn't that equally being implemented, right? And
Yeah,
maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Diet Coke is like, none of my ads are playing.
Okay, I've got the answer.
Are we supposed to trust Google? Oh, go ahead, Dale. You had the answer. So.
Well, and the answer is, like, Ed, you and Justin are going to answer it. And basically, if you are solely in control of Google, you have to make a decision. Do you put your best algorithms at play to be as fair as possible, or do you let the anti-vax community and these conspiracy nuts convince more people worldwide to potentially tip the balance towards some sort of chaos and anarchy?
Yeah, but then what happens if Google decides in their algorithm to favor a particular, as Justin said, political position?
That's not what I said, though. You are in control, Ed. You are at the head of that company, and you have a choice to make. Do you do your best algorithm in the best way that you can, or do you ignore it and let the internet stay wild?
Okay, if I'm Google, I'm in a profit. I'm working for a company and stockholders who want to maximize my profits. I don't care about the truth, man. I want to maximize my profits. That's the algorithm I'm going to use. I'm going to push up my advertisers. Come on.
Okay, no, I said it's you, though. You are in control of Google, not some other person. You're a humanist. What are you going to do? What decision?
I trust people. I'm going to make it the Wild West. I don't care. Yeah, I'm making it the Wild West because I trust people. I trust that enough people are going to look. They're going to be able to look at those links and tell what's BS and not what's BS.
Have you ever worked in a? Did you have when you were working? Was it within management?
Yeah, part of it's my second act.
So okay, so and in that, what did you learn about people?
I trusted my employees, but the people who worked for me personally, I trusted them over, basically their performance over time. Trust had to grow, or I told them, maybe it's best if you transfer to another department or you look for another job.
Is that company still in existence, Ed?
In a couple of different iterations. Small Connecticut bank, bought by a Jersey bank, bought by a South Carolina bank, bought by a California bank.
So Wells Fargo ended up buying it all.
That's it.
Yeah, Wells Fargo ended up buying everybody. So here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If this algorithm was largely conservative slanted, I'd be ranting and outraged as all can be. And this is kind of I'm acknowledging is a problem. And what we're gonna end up with is that Google is for liberals, and maybe Bing is where you go to do your conservative truth or slanted searches, right? Like this is already. I mean, this is what's happened with other media. Why not with browsers? We know that Fox News watchers, whenever they're polled, are conservatives. 90% of our viewers all agree that Donald Trump has got a good point about raping rapists and what have you, and the immigration thing, right? But you take that poll anywhere else, and the numbers are dramatically different. So I mean, maybe that's where we're headed. I mean, it's, in a way, the internet, the wide expanse of information that's out there does turn into funnels into what you wanted to find, right? That's what a search is. You put in what you're looking for, and you get directed to it. So ultimately, I don't think Google can overcome people's desire to find things that confirm what they already think. I think that's too ambitious, even for a giant technology company. But there is an element of their ability to do journalism in a Google search, which is you Google proof of the Loch Ness Monster, and you get your website that's showing you pictures of a Loch Ness Monster, but that you would at the same time maybe get a couple results from debunking the Loch Ness Monster. Reasons why this photo is fake, and here we prove it to you. Right? Like, there is something within the algorithm that would be nice if it could give a counterpoint, perhaps. But then there's some points that don't need counterpoints. Like, what are square footage to acres? Well, it's this number. But if you want to go to the the Old English way, it would be 40 steps to the north, 30 steps to the, I mean, like you can't counter every type of information.
So
maybe the algorithm could just tell you you're seeing something subjective and not actual fact-based. Would be interesting.
Yeah, no, I agreed. So let's take it a step further now. So they have decided, and they are going ahead, and they're putting the algorithms in, and it's happening. So I wonder, projecting into the future, these anti-vax sites, there's a lot of things they feel are negative. They're using real people to vet some of these things. It's not just computer algorithms. What's going to happen in the future for Google 3 years from now? Have they done more good than bad, or is it a neutral stance, or have they really fucked things up?
Well, okay, one of the things that we have to both acknowledge and deny at the same time is that while the internet realm is the new public forum, and we should bring all of our rights with us, when we're engaging in activity with something like a Google, we're using a platform that we don't own as a people. That is its own entity. It's a person. It's a corporation, right? And can decide to do with its product what it likes. So, will Google do harm to itself? I don't think so. I don't think Google will be damaging itself by giving you multiple, counterpoint arguments or bearing a wingnut opinion. I am concerned
basically,
by
anti-vax sites aren't going to show up in the search anymore, basically. You're not going to see these crackpots.
Right. But so would perhaps a Toxoplasma gondii story, because so many damn cat lovers out there want to deny that their cats carry parasites. I mean, there's the other side of it is that, like, right information might have a problem if it's by popular demand. So and as we all know, I'm a big fan of the ivory tower. I'm a big fan of the philosopher king state ruling all. So if they actually have selected, like a Wikipedia sort of does, experts in a field that have the ability to edit and to comment or revise, then yeah, maybe it will make for a better search engine. I mean, I do believe that the people with the best education in the subject should have influence on how that subject is disseminated throughout the society. And so, yeah, your crackpot physics theorist that's claiming Einstein was wrong probably shouldn't be as prominent on somebody trying to learn about physics' search as, say, a Sean Carroll or a Brian Greene, right? Like, we might actually benefit greatly from people who are attempting to search for information being directed to sites that actually have that information and aren't maybe flashy looking. Like, there's those commercials, like Brett Favre has a commercial or has a website where he's selling something. Look how professional my website looks. Like, yeah, everybody can have a professional looking website now. It doesn't take a team of computer engineers to make that happen. So how do you disseminate between a fake website that looks like they're looking for a loan for you and they're just fishing for your information compared to your local credit union's website, which might actually be lower tech? Like, there does need to be some vetting, I think. But again, as soon as I say it and commit to that idea, I really
Canadian Justin, I see you've unmuted your microphone. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking, we're talking about Google and kind of almost an absolute at showing us information, all things being equal. But the way that Google works, at least to my knowledge, is it's almost like a learning machine. So if you sign in, it personalizes your feed. So I say, don't show me any Kim Kardashian or entertainment stuff. Don't show me any sports. Show me business, technology, and science. So it knows that as going forward, it's going to show me almost like a self-serving bias. It's going to show me stories that it knows I will like, so it knows I'm more kind of left-leaning, science-oriented. It's not going to show me the right-wing conservative anti-vaxxer stuff. So over time, I'm going to only see what I want to see, whereas those other people who are maybe anti-vaxxers, if they've chosen not to, like certain types of things that go against their values, then they're not going to see that. So it almost creates, a two-silo approach. You've got the people who are in the left wing doing their stuff, and the people in the right wing. Maybe the negative thing about that is it creates two polarized views, and kind of never in the two shall they meet. And maybe they can try to show people opposing views without attacking people's values, because that's when people get defensive. So that's what I'm just thinking of. Google's just a technology, and yes, they're, subject to their shareholders, and they have to, do what businesses do and all that good stuff. But at some point, they also need to maintain some level of integrity, because in the long run, as long as you, cater to that community, that's what's going to determine your sustainability in the long run. Otherwise, they risk becoming another Fox News or CNN, and you don't want to be known to be the one that caters to a specific audience.
Yeah, and to an extent, you could also look at Google as a bookstore. This is, I was with one of the inventors of Excite, which was an early search engine which became the MSN search engine that got bought out eventually. And they were talking about Boolean searches, and you'd search this and this, and they were really thinking of their search engines as searching texts as though a great library of information. Scanning in, the idea was within 10 years we'll have scanned in all of the books that have ever been written. And you'll search for a subject and a phrase or a author, and you get this result that would lead you to this specific piece of text detailing what it is you were looking for. So if you still think of a search engine as a library, as accessing a library, I can see Google as the librarian saying, how many racist KKK sites do we really want to put on the shelves? And if somebody says, alternative power, should they be directed to that aisle? Perhaps not. And so I could see their desire as a good librarian wanting to manage what's on the shelf, a sort of, I guess, and then this is the word I'm searching for defeats entirely the statement I've made, but a vetting of the literature on the shelves. And there's always a huge danger in the vetting. When is it vetting and when is it censorship? What's that line? With some extremes, it's pretty easy to tell the difference. And as long as it's kept to the fringy extremes, I think it's okay. I don't think you need Dostoevsky's novels next to a book by David Duke. I don't think that has to be on the library shelf presented side by side. I think there can be a discerning palate that says, I'm a librarian, I know the difference between literature and hate speech, and I can decide which one of those books goes on the shelf. Part of that I'm okay with. Part of that I really am okay with not letting everything through the filter.
We'll let
But I'm assuming Dostoevsky makes it in. This is the thing. It's with the assumption that Dostoevsky's on the shelf and not just David Duke. See, that's the and if you don't know who David Duke is, he was a KKK guy who became a politician and actually tried to run for president, I think, at one point, which is really insane. But you know, I guess I am putting some trust in the algorithm.
Let the lawyer speak.
Created by
What's the lawyer have to say here, Pam?
Well, why are you censoring the hate speech? You know, I've read Mein Kampf. It's important to know how these freaks think so that you can combat them. I don't agree with them, of course not.
And the weak-minded may follow. That's the problem.
But they're going to follow anyone. It doesn't. If they're weak-minded, they're weak-willed usually, and they don't do anything anyway. So that's fine. But no, I mean, I wouldn't want them promoted, but I think they should be available so that people can understand how they think.
The problem what you mentioned, at least with the anti-vaccination, is you see here in the U.S., us Americans, we're not like the nice Canadians. We read something and we immediately think it's bullshit. And you had the anti-vaccination thing, and it became publicized, and there were people who didn't want to get vaccinated. There was big repercussions, and in the United States, states are fighting back. The state has said, you know what? We don't care if you don't want your child vaccinated. It's good for good for the herd immunity. Therefore, and I think California has something like this. You will have your child vaccinated if you want to go to a public school. But in Canada, you're nice Canadians. It's on the, you went to the Google search, and you believe the Google search because you're nice Canadians.
Good point. Yeah, I think overall the way this should work is Google should drop their algorithm, and they should call me, and I should decide. I think that's the way we should sort this out. I'll be very responsible for the length of period I can until power corrupts and forces me to, live a life of very extravagant means. And but for a period of time, I will be very fair. I promise that. It will last seconds at least, and after that point, I'll completely, try to gather all the riches on the planet I can for my own benefit.
I mean, look at that face. Look at that face, guys. Who could not trust this guy? Look at that face. That's a trusting face.
Trust me. Everybody should really trust me. I'm Canadian. You should trust me. Forget the algorithm. Trust me. I am your savior. I will make decisions for you. It will all be good.
Actually, that's Pamela, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say I was surprised. I didn't hear about it until it was already happening. But there were a bunch of Reclaim Australia rallies around the country on the weekend, last weekend, right? And Reclaim Australia is a movement to take it back from the extreme Islamists that we have taking over the country. And I was like, what? Even if that were true, which it's not, who the hell are a bunch of white people to say let's reclaim the country?
Yeah, when you said that, I thought that meant put everyone back on the ships and send them back to the UK.
Yeah. I'm just like, what? If it's the Indigenous Australians, cool, I'm there with you. But what the hell is this? But they're allowed to have their rallies. They're allowed to have their bullshit hate speech. No one turned up. They had like 20 people there or whatever, but that's fine. But they're allowed to do that. Who are we to censor them and say that they can't? As long as it's a peaceful rally and there's no violence and they're not advocating violence. but there's a big thing about that I want Sharia law. So it's important to know that what kind of thinking is out there, so that you know how to combat it. I didn't even know this movement was out there until I was when I was pregnant. And one of them, we were running the. I think I said before, I was going to run for Parliament, but then I was pregnant, so I had a baby, and instead I did the videoing of the people who were running, and I put it on the internet for them. So there were some Reclaim Australia people running then, and I did my question to them got a standing ovation. Anyway, about I've had enough of this Islamophobia bullshit. What the hell? And the woman came up to me afterwards with all this literature, and I said, yeah, no, thanks. I've read the Quran. Oh, have you? So it's important to know what's out there, and if we start censoring. Like Justin was saying, oh, this shouldn't be in a library. Well, who are you to say that? And how do you combat it if you don't learn about it? So I'm definitely not saying promote hate speech. I think anyone who has ever heard me speak about anything knows that I'm as left as you can get. But I think we need to be educated about all that crap.
It's a tough one.
It is.
It is. It's all tough. Life is tough.
But if you're in search of a dictator to make decisions, if you know some groups in Australia, you can let them know. Pass along my card.
Well, you can't be any worse than our current Prime Minister, I tell you.
Oh, your current Prime Minister is a dictator?
He doesn't believe in climate change. He's banned funding for solar energy and wind energy, right? And Australia has like the most sun on the planet and the most wind.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I wish I wasn't.
Yeah, your Prime Minister looks like a James Bond villain.
I know, it's so embarrassing. I know. Yeah,
That's just crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. Yes.
Okay, because I'm not. I consider myself more in the middle of the political spectrum, but wow, that's psychotic.
Yep.
Doesn't believe in doesn't believe in solar power.
Believe in God, though.
Believes. Oh. Okay, I'm getting more clarity as we speak. I'm beginning to understand. Clearer picture.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He made a statement once. He read 50 Shades of Grey so that he could have something to talk about with his daughters. Because apparently they read it or something. They were like teenagers or whatever. And I was like, Anyway, I don't want to go on a rant about my Prime Minister. Sorry.
Wait. I want to know, when is your next election?
Next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's out, man. He's out.
So the prevailing wisdom in Australia is this person's gone. Is that true?
Well, see, now,
Oh.
Google Analytics tells me it is, because that's what I want to read.
Oh, I see. Very good point.
So,
Didn't he get in because the opposition, the party that was in power, kind of split and fought with each other? Isn't that how he got in?
Wait a second. Let me just get some toast for Chelsea, because that's what she's screaming about, and then I'll be able to hear you.
Well,
Google's not in control. It's Chelsea that's in control.
You've heard of this guy, Donald Trump, I assume. Maybe if you Google the name, you might see a few interesting quotes from him. And among the Republican candidates, now this is early, and this is just the Republican candidates, and there's 97 of them at this point, but according to the polls, Donald Trump is the leading Republican candidate with, maybe the last one was like 24% of Republicans.
Ed, can we do a test here? So I typed in Donald Trump, all lowercase, a space between the first and last name. I typed it into Google, And can you do the same thing? I want to see what comes up for you.
Oh, that's a
compare
great
it.
question. I love that.
Because the first thing that comes up for me is it shows in the news, and it says GOP's nightmare and independent Donald Trump. And that comes from CNN. Underneath that, exclusive, Trump threatens third-party run, Donald Trump's 4-hour swing by border. So I'm just wondering what would come up for you guys.
I've got a
Okay,
different.
so I got GOP's nightmare and independent Donald Trump, and then I get Donald Trump shouts down MSNBC's Jose Diaz-Balart during border pressure video, and then Donald Trump makes a Texas-sized splash with visit to Mexican border.
Interesting. Yeah, I get none of that.
I've got something different. My first is from something called The Hill, whatever the heck that is. Exclusive, Trump threatens third-party run. Then I've got CNN, then I've got an NBC. Those are news stories.
Really interesting, right?
And then I've got the first page is really Donald Trump's. He has an actual Trump.com, the Trump organization. Then I've got Wikipedia, Donald Trump, and then I've got Donald Trump, I'll change my tone.
Yeah,
So
I've got that
different.
too.
I've got a different search.
No, I got all those following too, Ed.
Okay.
Those are consistent, but the newsfeed portion was slightly different for all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a slightly different one. I think mine varied slightly by one from Ed's. I have exclusive Trump threatens third-party run from The Hill. Then the second one is from CNN, says GOP's nightmare and independent Donald Trump. And the third one is Donald Trump makes a Texas-sized splash visit to Mexican border.
Interesting.
And that's from the Washington Post.
How are those decisions made? How does the algorithm doing it?
Well,
I'm using the Google.ca portal. I'm not sure if that makes any difference.
I read a lot of news online, so I'm wondering why that's where the news stories showed up for me first.
Huh. Very interesting.
So the Donald Trump thing is going to be exciting. I think they may be forced to handpick any candidate other than him to be the nominee.
Yeah.
Which will be very obviously non-democratic because the GOP's problem with Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is exactly who they've been telling the GOP followers is who's supposed to be the president. It's supposed to be a CEO, a guy who's worth billions of dollars, a guy who speaks brashly and non-diplomatically about every subject is the one you're supposed to cheer for. You're supposed to rally behind. And so they're kind of stuck. You know, this isn't the guy who's going to tote the party line because he doesn't care what it is. He doesn't need a super donor. He's the guy you'd look for to be a super donor. So yeah, they got a real problem there. And on the left, there's a huge problem. My feed, at least, my Facebook feed, is all about Bernie Sanders now. It's just ridiculously funneled it down to Justin wants to see Bernie Sanders stuff all the time. That's all he cares about. So we're just going to force feed him more Bernie Sanders. And they're right.
I was going to tell you what I got when I Googled Donald Trump, and then I got booted. But I'm back. So, I have The Hill, exclusive, Trump threatens third-party run, GOP's nightmare from CNN, Washington Post, Donald Trump makes Texas-sized splash, and then Trump.com. So I think mine's similar to Ed's.
Mine is identical to yours.
Oh, really?
Yep, line by line.
Wow, really? We probably Google a lot of the same stuff. Don't we have some of the same degrees?
Probably, I think, yeah.
You're like my twin.
It's scary sometimes.
I know.
Can we jump into another?
Time zones?
Oh,
Could it
go
be
ahead.
time zone oriented? Could it be that because we're in different? You know how the every television show that airs in the United States airs in the same time slot. So that the Daily Show, Jon Stewart's show, comes on 3 hours before mine does for you, Ed. You can watch the Daily Show, and 3 hours later, I'm seeing the Daily Show. It's not like it's all live TV. I wonder if they've got some sort of algorithm for when to present these stories.
But wouldn't that be like right now? It's 3:03 a.m. I'm sitting on the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 50 feet away from the Atlantic Ocean. You know, we've got people in Australia, most of people in California. So we're all in different time zones here.
Right.
Very different ones too.
Because I don't have Donald Threatens Independent Run on any of mine, but I wonder if I come back to this 3 or 4 hours from now, if that's what will trump the rest of the stories.
You know,
But I'm 4 p.m. Friday.
I'm 2 a.m. Friday. 2 a.m. in the morning Friday.
Yeah.
Today's.
I'm
Always
1
very glad.
I'm 1 p.m. Tuesday.
You're 1 a.m. It cannot be 1 p.m.
Tuesday.
There's no way. And Tuesday would be the one.
I fibbed. So try this. So go to Google, type in Donald Trump, but on the top of the page, click on images. And I'm just sort of interested. I get a lot of bad.
I don't like you well enough to do that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at that stupid hairline one more time.
Okay. So my first image appears he is on Fox News. Second one, he's on NBC. Third
Yes.
one looks like some sort of media
He's yelling.
headshot. No, I don't have a yelling one.
Oh, I got a yelling one, and there's the third one.
Okay, my yelling one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's on the hardwood something.
Like his lips are almost a letter O. It's right.
No, that one I could probably call the Zero Hedge.
That's third. That's the third on my list. Is the Zero Hedge.
Okay, Zero Hedge is wow. Look at this. Zero Hedge is 5th on mine.
Okay, at the top. Are you looking at? Do you have like, categories before you get to all the photos?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I have TV show on the left, The Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice. Then I have one labeled hair.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Someone should tell him that bald guys are hot. Anyway, they have one that's labeled house. Then I have one labeled daughter.
That's interesting.
Then there's one labeled plane. Cars.
Okay, can I tell mine? Mine starts family,
Mine too.
hair
Yeah.
house, which you had. Then I have cars and president.
Exactly what I've got.
Okay.
Mine's slightly different. Family, house, hair, quotes, cars, and you know what? I do search a lot of quotes from famous figures. I wonder if it's just keying in on my previous searches.
Well, mine is
So
similar to yours.
Google is already filtering our information here.
Well, mine was almost identical to yours because it said family, house, hair, quotes, cars, and then daughter wedding.
That's mine. Yep. Exactly. And then if I hit the arrow, it goes to nothing.
If I hit the arrow, I end up with Donald Trump Jr., who I didn't even know existed.
You know, I will mention with these Google searches, why I think they should stay just the way they are. I've got ScienceIsland.org. I put science stories, and then I put tags. Last week, I get maybe 100, 200 people. Last week, I had like 3,000 on one day. I'm saying, what the heck? And it's because the tag put that myscienceisland.org post like first or second in whatever it was. So anybody went online, there was my site first or second, and all of a sudden I've got 3,000 people looking at it. So I kind of like it the way it is.
You're making tons of money, I bet, Ed, hey, on this show?
Oh, God, yes.
Living a lavish life.
Yeah. You notice the lavish surroundings I live in.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
That is a 40-year-old refrigerator.
I live in a tent.
Oh, come on, it doesn't look like a
van
tent.
down by the river.
I live in my parents' basement, pretty much.
Awesome. Oh, boy.
Speaking of places to live, I found the island.
Yes. Go
I
ahead,
found
Justin.
the land for the island in the Cape Valley.
Can you post a link so
I
we can
posted
see
a
it?
link at some point.
I don't want to live in the USA.
Yeah, me
What
neither.
other countries are there?
Australia's now.
I mean, legitimate countries. Because when I Google countries, all I get is USA.
That's your Google Analytics.
Okay. This is a house.
Oh, no. That's not a house. I'm sorry.
Yeah, horses. Okay. You got green. You got some green stuff. $160,000. Actually, well, that's a larger view. I don't know if we own all of this. That's not too. How much land is there?
160 acres.
That's a
No,
good
that's
chunk. That's
the
a
cost.
quarter
That's
mile
the
by a
cost.
quarter mile.
Oh no, you're right. That's a good chunk of land.
Yeah.
Property backs Bureau of Land Management land, which creates huge, larger hunting opportunities.
Mostly means nobody can develop that land. You won't have somebody buying the land behind you and building stuff.
And a small cabin that needs power and water, but we can build our own stuff.
Yeah,
Is
screw power and water.
On the road, is that what it says?
What?
Is it number 42? I just saw 42.
Oh,
Zero.
Yeah. Road 42. Yeah, the answer to life.
Zero.
Yeah, but it says 42. See, what's that referring to?
Mm-hmm. It's within an hour of a major university. It is within, I think, 15 to 20 minutes of a pretty decent-sized casino.
Is it a free university?
No, it's University of California, Davis. Although there are some junior colleges in between. I think it's probably about the same distance to Sonoma State, where Blair went to school. Cape Valley is a beautiful, just gorgeous type valley. The land from the topography, and I don't have the exact location, but I'm pretty sure where it's at. It's pretty sloped, and I'm going actually to look at the land on Tuesday, but my belief is it's sloped in this valley a little bit southwest towards the northeast, which is slightly problematic depending on how dramatic the slope is. It means it might be too shady for proper solar, but it's 160 acres, so we'll see.
I posted a counter proposal in Canada in the chat area, so
An island?
oh, for sure.
Wait, is that an east island or a west island?
That's on the east coast.
Yeah, the east coast. It's you got to be on the west coast. If you're talking British Columbia, I could get on board.
Prince Edward Island.
But it's cheap. It's $87,500. It's within our spending.
There you go. Jim Cramer of CNBC Stock Market Show says, buy absolutely, reminds me of the old Cape Cod in the 1960s. There you go, Jim Cramer's endorsement.
Of what?
Of this property.
Out in
Oh,
Prince
well,
Edward
now I'm
Island.
out. He's been wrong about absolutely everything.
Yeah, he has.
With the exchange rate, that $87,000 Canadian is probably something in the realm of 60,000 US. So you're getting a deal on it.
Really? That seems like a deal. How big is this? Oh, it's 11 acres.
Yeah, we can
Dude,
fit.
it's 11 acres. This is,
Build up!
my land is $1,000 an acre. This land is if I knew how to do multiplication, I think it's around $8,000 an acre. Or if it's 60 something, it's $6,000 an acre. This isn't that island. This is like 50 of those trees.
But you know what? The
Used to be
U.S.
free
has
health-
such a large military that when we try to create our own society, they're going to crush us.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. The U.S. has such a large military that they're too busy training to do anything. That's the problem with the Canadian Mounties. Is it's like we've got nothing to do. Oh, here's some people trying to build a house without a permit. Let's get them. We've got nothing else is going on. No other Canadian across the country is breaking any laws today. That's the only place. And we're like within, aren't we in the realm of what is it, Mayor Ford? Like I don't want some crack addict mayor to come like I'm gonna hang out with you and do crack and blah. Like stop. Canada needs to clean out the attic before.
I just realised how much Canadian television I used to watch. So, Due South. I used to watch Due South.
You used to watch Due South?
Wait, what is that? That's a Canadian television.
That's a really,
I know Degrassi
really
High.
hot
I know the
know
Red
what it-
Green Show, SCTV. What are you
Yes.
talking about?
He's a Mountie, and he got chucked out, but he still acted like a Mountie when he went away. Anyway, he was really hot. Is Grizzly Adams, is that Canadian as well, or is that
My
US?
duty.
I don't remember. Grizzly Adams.
Wait, Grizzly Adams isn't Canadian?
No, I was.
I was just checking.
No. Grizzly Adams is not Canadian. He's a man who befriended a cub bear who grew up to be his best
know.
friend. He's a mountain man.
Yeah,
He's
I know my
a
Grizzly
mountain
Adams.
bear. And every once in a while, like, he'll fall in the water and the bear has to pull him out, and then the bear
just
falls
checking.
down a cliff
did
and he
watch-
has to help the bear. It's just stupid, really.
Okay, Justin, I posted another island. Check it out.
Wait, what'd you post?
I posted another island. It's on BC.
Okay,
You
this
know,
one
Dale.
I'm bored with because I'm still in Prince Edward Sound, so I'm not believing. No, I got the same thing. I got the same one again.
You clicked the wrong link.
All right, hang on, let me go back to the link section.
This will take
I'll
you
just let
to.
you know that British Columbia Islands are about 10 times the price of Atlantic Canada Islands because the cost of living is a lot higher there.
Well, that and also because they're awesome and worth it. And the East Coast, I don't want to learn French. These islands this isn't an island. This is
Nope.
just low tide. At low tide, somebody's trying to sell.
Nobody really speaks French here. That's just our
Good lord, yeah! Look how much the prices went up. They're in the mazillions.
Dale,
What's a
Dale,
billion
I got
Canadians?
a report from the chat room. The chat room wants to move to Canada, so you got
Yeah.
support in the chat room.
All right, Kate. So Justin, looks like we're moving to Canada.
Yeah, but these
prefer
islands. I mean,
PAI.
somebody come up with $1 million American, and yeah, I'm right behind you. But
Well, we can't. We got to go to PEI.
look, I got 160 acres at $1,000 an acre. I think I found an affordable, and it's close to a casino, so it's fun for the kids. All right?
Let's see.
You know, Dale, you're worried about the American Army, right?
Oh,
What
they're
was the
gonna,
last war the American Army won? Didn't do so good in Iraq.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Hold on.
Okay.
Much as I was against every aspect of that war going in, we won it like within the first week. What we lost was the peace. We lost the peace completely. America's gotten really bad at peace time and reconstruction and all the rest of that. But the war was over the first week. I mean, really, the war didn't last.
we funded the whatever the top it would be the Shiite ruling class in Iraq was funded by the American Army. I mean, they got all our money. I mean, they've probably got resorts in France from the money the United States gave them. So I would not call that a win on our side. I would certainly not call Afghanistan a win on our side.
Again, I call both of those as losing the peace.
Okay.
Winning the war was or actually waging the war was the only ambition of the administration that was in charge of doing
All right, that I'll go along with.
Let me put it this way: in a direct conflict with military to military, the U.S. is going to crush anybody in any sort of conventional war. But when it comes down to it, people are pissed off. They're unhappy. They're going to blow stuff up. They're going to undermine, and it just won't be a happy place after the fact.
You know, Dale, when the United States, when America invaded Canada, you kicked our butts. Now, of course, it was the American Revolution. You know, it was a few hundred years ago. But we invaded. I think it was from New Hampshire or so. I forget where.
War of 1812.
Yeah. Was that it? Okay. And you guys beat us.
Did
All
we?
it took was a few hundred people.
Yeah. I think we still got to have Maine, and I think Maine was our victory from that conflict. Above Maine, we were like, really, we don't want it.
Well, that's why you said
Really
that was your
not
main
worth it.
objective.
We'll pay a couple mil for Alaska, which we've never even been to or seen, but we know what's in eastern Canada and want no piece or portion of it.
Neither does the rest of Canada, apparently.
Right?
I want to live in PEI. It's wonderful there.
What is PEI? What are you talking about?
Prince Edward Island.
Edward Island. It is beautiful. It's a
But
wonderful.
it's only 11 acres. That's not even enough for a car dealership. Look, 160 acres. Quarter mile in every direction. Of some of the most beautiful California valley land you could possibly imagine. You can see the stars at night. The road is right there. We got a little highway there.
How about Northern Lights?
Distance. You can be at a casino within 15 minutes.
Can you see Northern Lights?
No.
I rest my case.
You can't see the Northern Lights. And also you can't see the Northern Lights when you have a heavy cloud cover, which is 280 days of the year, right? If I'm wrong. This is, I mean, basically, if you want to live without stars, go to Canada. That's where they don't even, I mean, you might as well be in New York City or Los Angeles. Light pollution, cloud pollution. There's a happy medium. There's another choice you can make.
But you're in the sand. Do you want to be in the desert all your life? That's not good.
This part of California is not a desert. This part of California is where wine is made.
I've had sand in my bathing suit, and it's not a great experience. Let's just call a spade a spade.
So here's what I need to figure out, Ed. Ed, as chief treasurer of secretary of the Treasury of Science Island, we need to come up with 50 G's. It's a little less than that, but about 50 G's. We need 30% of the 160. If we can come up with that, I can float the loan for the rest of it, and we can start inviting whoever is insane enough to follow us to this mountaintop in Central California.
Okay. I don't mind. You know, you have people. They're willing to put in $50,000. Hey, I'll take it. I'll set up the checking account. But borrowing is 30%. So we have to pay back the 70% with interest. Now, you know, you look at the headlines, and there's this country called Greece. They kind of tried that. You know, tried to borrow money, and they couldn't pay it back. You know? So I don't know if that's such a great idea, or else borrowing money to try to buy Science Island. I don't know.
At 30%, it sounds like you put it on your visa.
So that's not the interest rate. No. That's the down payment. We need to come up with 30% of the 160, and I can float the loan to get the land.
You know what, Justin? I think that's a great idea. You're going to float the loan. So, okay, that's all right. You know, it's Justin Jackson goes on that little loan sheet. Hey, I'm all for it. You send me the cash. You write your name on that little loan sheet. I think that's a plan.
We just need the 50 G. I don't have the 50 Gs. If I had that, I'd already be like telling people to, you know, the address to move in.
What if we just, like, the American government, I think they have it right. Why don't we just print the money? You got a photocopier? It's all about confidence anyways, and look at us. Would you not be confident?
In like a year and a half, I can make that in a week. So.
All right, Pamela. So in a year and a half, when me and Pamela are on a coastal range mountaintop, overlooking a lush valley of farms, doing our show live from satellite internet, and the ice melt of Canada has turned all of Canada into swampland, which is and you know, you're gonna have the, what is it called when they get the when the water drains down and you get the big holes start showing up underground. That's where it's going. It's gonna be swampland.
Sinkholes?
You're gonna have sinkholes showing up all over Canada. Canada's just been waiting for. Justin Gill just sent me 50 Gs. Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome.
So, you know what? You're calling it swamp. You're trying to devalue our water supply because it's so clean and pristine and you want it. So by devaluing it, you think you can buy it for a lower price, but it's not going to work here.
No. But as your first and only export, I think I don't think you should be, play too hardball with it, because it's like, okay, Canada's got an export other than the occasional comedian. The occasional comedian export, but then they always expatriate and become U.S. citizens. So I don't even know if that's an export other than, I think that's emigration. That comes
oh my God, we gave you Captain Kirk, okay?
No, really, Tiberius?
We gave you Captain Kirk. It's not American.
No idea, but
we gave you James Doohan too, so we gave you Scotty.
See, we're slowly infesting the country.
Okay, people you can have back. Alan Thicke. I've never understood why Alan Thicke was here to begin with. I don't know that he added anything to America. Please take him back as soon as possible. Marty McFly.
You gotta like Marty McFly. Come on.
We're keeping him.
All right.
You can keep Celine Dion and Justin Bieber. We don't want them.
Really? Justin Bieber? I didn't know. Celine, I'm like, okay. She's from a big family. They filled her with a lot of confidence. They told her she was that great. And she sings. That's nice. But
what's wrong with Australia? Is there no imports there? Who's Australia?
Oh, no, we can get them too.
They have them with their hats.
Too.
Man without
Safety
fear.
Mad Max was a megastar here in the United States, and still until he started spreading his anti-Semitic Australian vitriol about, and then we send him back. Yeah, I think we deported him.
Did Olivia Newton-John stay in the U.S.? She was Australian, wasn't she?
No.
She
No.
moved here at 7, so she's British Australian.
Oh. I thought she was an Aussie.
Yeah, she's Australian, but she wasn't born here.
Oh. Well, she's not really Australian then.
You know, I just did a search of famous Canadians, and guess what? Fourth story is well-known Canadians. UC Davis particle theory.
What?
That's the fourth item. See, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Other famous Canadians too. I can't remember. There's a dude who played a minor role in the Goonies.
Pam Anderson. Come on, Pam Anderson. Who cannot watch it? Kim Cattrall. Okay, she's pretty hot.
Alanis Morissette.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Brian Adams.
But you know, we gave you Rupert Murdoch.
You gave what?
Please take him that back now. Actually, what's kind of funny, when it's most popular people born in Canada by the IMBD, I don't recognize any of these names. Ryan Gosling?
Not a
I
clue.
heard of him.
That figures.
I don't know what he does.
I don't
There's
know
a
what his claim to
London,
fame is, but I know the
Jim
women's thing.
No. Jim Carrey is a Canadian?
Yes.
I always thought there was something weird about him. Donald Sutherland? Donald Sutherland's been in every single movie that's ever been made in the United States, or in the 70s.
Donald Sutherland's as left-wing as you can get. Him and Jane
he's
Fonda used to
Canadian?
visit North Vietnam.
Huh.
So
Didn't know
Donald Sutherland blows my mind. I had no idea Donald Sutherland was a Canadian. That's news to me. Wow.
Avril Lavigne, I like her too.
Avril
Seth
Lavigne?
Rogen? No, Seth Rogen was like born down the street for me. He can't be Canadian. Oh, Vancouver? Same thing as Davis.
How about the Matrix guy?
Keanu
Is he
Reeves.
down? Yeah. Isn't he Canadian?
Why? No. Sorry. There's a little confusion there.
You go with
Keanu Reeves is not Canadian. Keanu Reeves is gay. It sometimes gets convoluted. It's like, oh, it's the gay celebrity, it's the Canadian celebrity. There's a crossover there.
You mean Happy?
Yeah, very happy guy. Born down the street for me. He can't be Canadian. Oh, Vancouver? Same thing as Davis.
How about the Matrix guy?
Keanu
Is he
Reeves.
down? Yeah.
So-
Is he Canadian?
Why? No. Sorry. There's a little confusion there.
You go with
Keanu Reeves is not Canadian. Keanu Reeves is gay. It sometimes gets convoluted. It's like, oh, it's a celebrity. It's a Canadian celebrity. There's a crossover there.
You mean Happy?
Yeah, very happy guy. Born down the street for me. He can't be Canadian. Oh, Vancouver? Same thing. Where's this loop feed coming from?
I don't know.
I was really confused.
I didn't hear it the first time. I didn't know what you were talking about.
I
Yeah,
muted.
I didn't.
I muted
Keanu
Michael.
Reeves.
You're not a nice Canadian there, Dale. See, all this, and you muted a guy. You have the one fan we have in our chat room. He finally gets in here. Pamela's been waiting for him to come here, and you mute him.
I didn't mute him.
Oh.
Did I mute him?
Maybe he muted himself. I don't know.
I'm trying to unmute him.
I got a quick story here that kind of boggles my mind. We're talking about building things. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, no. Take it back. Take it back. Dan Aykroyd? Dan Aykroyd's Canadian? Take it back. No. You can't have Dan Aykroyd. A Blues Brother cannot be Canadian.
Dan Aykroyd, John Candy.
John Candy, yeah, but not Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd's Elwood. The Blues Brothers. Rawhide and big thing with the half-pack cigarettes. Distance to Chicago. We gotta go right now. That thing. No, you can't have him. That's not right. You can't have Dan Aykroyd.
Rolling. Oh, my butt is swollen. It's all
I'm
good.
getting so irritated with the number of Americans who are Canadian.
We're getting a severe feedback thing from, I think it's from Michael.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Well, at least you got to hear from him. I do want to just briefly touch on a mind-boggling story. We're talking about building a science island. If this was China, it would be science megacity. No country in the world does things on the scale that China does. They're planning to build this city. Well, it's actually kind of a suburb of Beijing, and the whole thing will take up a city the size of the state of Kansas and have a proposed population of 130 million people. And it says the planned megalopolis, the metropolitan area, would be 6 times the size of New York, and it's meant to revamp northern China's economy. It says the supercity is the vanguard of economic reform. The new region will link research facilities and creative culture of Beijing with the economic muscle of the port city of Tijan and the hinterlands of Hebei, or something like that, Providence. Okay. It's called Jingjai. And it's meant to help the area catch up to China's more prosperous economic belt. But the new supercity is intended to be different in scope and conception. It will be spread out over 82,000 square miles. 82,000 square miles, 120 million people in one city. Now, there are some people have already moved into it, having a few minor problems. The services are really bad. This is Xing Lan Yuan. He talks about commutes, about 5 hours a day. His 6-year-old son just went to elementary school, and they got 65 kids in the class. It has no bus terminals, no cinemas, only 2 small parks. Streets flood in the rain because there is no drainage. And the thing is, it will be entirely financially reliant on the federal government. But the federal government is really pushing this city. One good thing they will have is high-speed rail. And this is something I'd like to see in the United States. Their bullet trains can go 150 to 185 miles an hour. One of the ideas that the government of China claims is that no one with these bullet trains will have more than a commute of 1 hour. But of course, now you got that one guy who's living there right now, and he's got a 5-hour commute. No. Can you imagine a city, 82,000 square miles, 130 million people living in it?
What was your worst commute when you were working, Ed?
From Connecticut, Shelton, Connecticut, to Newark, New Jersey. 3 hours on Monday, leaving at maybe 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, and then a 3-hour commute over the traffic, and then Friday night coming back, it could be 5 or 6 hours. That was my worst commute.
I just can't comprehend that. My worst commute ever has been 15 minutes.
15 minutes? I used to live in my hometown of Stamford. I walked to work. It took me more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's how it is here. So what would you do during all that time? That's such a waste. How would you make it useful and productive? Reading or?
You can't. Listening. You listen to stuff on, now this is 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I had DVDs, so I could listen to music.
Wow.
And that's about it. Now I could listen to audiobooks and things now, I suppose. And it was a very stressful commute. You're talking the New Jersey Turnpike. I mean, it was like 3 traffic jams. It was really, really horrible.
Wow.
I can't even fathom that, because I'm thinking if you spend 5-6 hours commuting, that's almost as much time as you spend working once you actually arrive at work. So you spend more time commuting than you do actually working.
Would have been true, except I was working at this bank in New Jersey. Well, you work 12 hours after you got there, so.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at this bank that got taken over 6 times. And before we got taken over, first 25 years, I loved it. The last 5, I hated it because of what I was just talking about.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Let's hope for Google cars, automated cars in the future.
Now I'm curious, I know you probably had that was a special situation, Ed. It's not probably the norm to travel that long a distance where you live. I know a lot of people that live in a big city I live in Halifax, which is a very small city, maybe 200,000 people spread across a very, suburban rural area. And in the bigger cities that I've been in, Montreal, Toronto, by Canadian standards, some people might take an hour and a half to 2 hours, but that's on the upper threshold limit, by subway or bullet train or some type of public transit that they might spend.
I would guess in most metropolitan areas, you are talking about an hour plus.
Yeah, okay.
From the suburbs into the city, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're lucky enough, you take a train, and that's nice. Now, in fact, nowadays on the train, you can have your computer, and you do work and stuff. So the commute has kind of changed very much. But on the roads, it's still that's probably a very stressful part for a large percentage of Americans who have to commute from the suburbs into a big city.
Well, nowadays, if they even see you looking at a screen, they'll fine you for it if you're looking at a cell phone or text messaging when you're driving. We've got a lot of laws around here now for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, if you drive.
Yeah.
You guys hear there was a story I read last week about connecting, I think it was the Chinese or Russians were interested in connecting Alaska across the channel there, because there's only like a 50-kilometer divide between land masses, and they're talking about putting a tunnel underneath it a 200-kilometer tunnel,
From
kind of
where
like
to where?
between Alaska and the European continent. So basically, you could take a train from anywhere in North America, and it would connect into
Russia?
Asia and eventually Europe.
I kind of, well, the Alaskans are very independent. They're very right-wing. Now, they are very much interested in oil. Oil is kind of their saving grace. So I'm going to guess, although, you know, there are a lot of Alaskans of Russian descent because there used to be, you know, they did a lot of trades back in the day. But now, I don't know. I would say that's pretty much of a pipe dream. I cannot see that happening right now, particularly the way the relationships between Russia and the United States are at this point.
Yeah.
It makes sense from a trade standpoint, but I don't know. I think that sounds like too much of a pipe dream at this point.
It would be exceedingly interesting, though, to have the two continents connected together via train, to have that extra option other than just flight or really slow ride on a boat.
I don't know the longest underground tunnels. Do you have that tunnel between England and France that goes underneath the English Channel? I'm not sure how long that is.
Well, apparently the divide is a little over 50 kilometers, and they would make the tunnel 200 kilometers long for whatever reason, part of the design. But I thought that was interesting. Probably a pipe dream, but nevertheless, interesting thought.
No, let's go to the great god Google.
Well, I was thinking, like, what would, aside from the cool factor of it, what would be the main economic, would it be for tourists for travel, or would it be for trade? What would be the main reason? Because I don't imagine that'd be cheap.
Yeah, I bet you it's all about trade. Oil.
Yeah, with international, well, the question would be, would it be quicker than by boat? And I'm going to guess it would be.
Something like oil, though, isn't something that you need kind of like a just-in-time. It's the cheapest way to move any good is by slow boat from wherever you're sending it to. So, you know, it doesn't matter if the oil is all the same relatively, so it doesn't matter if it gets here, because you don't want to have it here in a day that's going to drive up the cost. You want to have it on a slow boat.
Right.
Or produced and processed locally or closer to keep the cost down.
I bet that would be a busy train.
Well, there was even talk of taking. There's a lot of unused refineries in Atlantic Canada. The Irvings have quite a bit there. They were talking about moving Canadian oil from the tar sands in Alberta through Canada, having it processed in New Brunswick, I think, and then shipped from there. It's kind of a similar argument to having it shipped down to the U.S. Gulf, but instead having it sent across Canada to kind of give the Canadians a bit more economic incentive.
Right.
The longest current underground tunnel is in Japan, 53.9 kilometers, connecting an island, Hokkaido, to the city. And it happened because there used to be ferry boats, and the ferry boats sank. So they built this underground. That's only 53.9 kilometers.
You know, it's quite a ways. If they can do it at 53 kilometers, it's just a matter of cost, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, too, in Japan, they've got a lot more control over the infrastructure because it's all one country. Trying to have a transcontinental, you know, tunnel going between two very kind of opposing political entities, you know, I can only imagine trying to manage that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our friend Justin Jackson has said he's done. He's on the slow boat to Sleepsville. So I don't know if he's going to come back or not, but great having you. Another great chat. When Justin's in the house, we're going to have an interesting chat.
I think I'm on my way through pretty quick here. We had so many interesting stories, though, to go over, and only got to maybe half of them.
Yeah,
There's a lot of mix tonight, I found. A lot of the times, like I think a few weeks ago, half the stories were biology or a particular given science, but there's quite a mix and match from even a lot of current affairs stuff that kind of cropped up.
yeah, we thought we really had a terrific discussions. A lot of really terrific discussions tonight. I think it's one of our better hangout. Not up to you climbing the tower, of course. Not up to that standard, but we got to see Dale in his sexy climbing tower gear.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was fun.
Okay.
So what do you do with these shows when they're completed? Do you post them on the Science Island website to be watched later, or do you just keep them private?
Oh no! Are you kidding? Private? You didn't realize I have my own, very own channel, or at least let me get a link to our channel where we have had as many of us as 1,000 people at one time view, but normally we get about 100 or so.
Wow.
In the chat area. There's a link to the channel.
Are a lot of these people overflow from TWIS, or where do they mostly come from?
I'm guessing most of them do come from TWIS, and Kiki has been talking about the show recently in the last several weeks.
Very cool.
And I can also show you, if you have not heard about it or seen it, which is hard for me to believe. Let me go to the ScienceIsland.org.
That I have seen.
Okay, that you know about. And that's where you can see this Hangout live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where Pamela probably disappeared, probably taking care of. She's either taking care of Chelsey, or Chelsey is sleeping and she's back on her law studies.
Awesome. I think that was a pretty good show.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay. Bye, Pamela. Bye, Chelsey. Bye, Canadian Dale and Canadian Justin. And we will